What chicken, everybody? My name is Ross Mandell. I'm coming to you live today from Delray Beach, Florida, Scott Woolley Studios. I have a personal hero of mine as a guest today. He is an inspiration to anybody that knows him. Help me welcome Ian Cannon. Ian, how are you today?
Doing fantastic, Ross. How are you?
I'm really great. My brother, I want to jump right in and waste no time because you're a special young man. Tell us who you are.
I am actually a former wheelchair boxing contender. Yes, that is a thing. I was born with spastic dystonic quadriplegia, cerebral palsy, and now I run a wheelchair boxing training program, and I'm an entrepreneur focused on empowering the disabled movement and getting everybody working, doing what they need to do, and off of the system.
So when you were born, it was apparent, at least when you were about 2 years old, that you weren't a normal child, correct? You had this some form of cerebral palsy. Is that fair to say?
That is 100% correct,
And you,
affecting all four extremities.
all four extremities, and you're 32 years old today, and you've spent your life in bed or in the chair. That's also fair to say.
That is correct.
Okay, so I know that you don't like the word uh, disabled, right? A disability. You were born with a disease,
I was born with a condition,
a
yes. And,
condition.
and I don't like the word handicap because that implies a limitation. I personally don't think I don't have any.
You certainly don't. I just want to say we're trying to educate the world right now because, it was brought to my attention. We met many years ago when I actually went into the fight business. And as you know, I had been training. Somehow you reached out to me through social media and you wanted me to be involved to help promote, to gain awareness to disabled men and women like yourself that are bound between the bed and the chair, right? Limited movement, limited use of your legs, even limited use of your hands, correct?
That is correct.
But anybody that Googles you and watches you throw a punch understands you got a vicious right hand, bro.
Well, thank you very much. I worked really hard on that. Got me out of many jams.
I can't even imagine, and you're a very independent guy. It seems to me that, it would be very easy for you to feel bad for yourself, correct? To just envelope yourself in self-pity, etc. But that's not who you are, is it?
No, and we all have our days. I have them too. I have medical induced post traumatic stress disorder from all the procedures I went through as a child. I have a history of depression, but I made a choice. Disability itself is a choice. I live by the motto that I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. Take that in the three levels: the physical environment, which is about 60 to 40% mine on any given day, and the mental and psychological environment have to be about 120% mine in order for me to achieve balance and achieve focus. And that's the way that I go through my life.
Now, when you were diagnosed as a child, not only did they expect you to be sort of physically handicapped, but they thought that cognitively, mentally, you would also be handicapped. Isn't that right?
That was the fear, yes.
And as a young boy, what was it like? I mean, you've had how many medical procedures would you say?
I've had four major surgeries throughout my life, and I'm 32. So it's been a ride. And one of the things that I had to learn was how to adapt socially and to make my mind my legs, if you will. It's one of those things where you need to define your own environment and always account for variable change, to use the macroeconomics term. And that's one of the things that I had to learn to do: create social skills and create opportunities for myself in order to be on par with my peer group.
I mean, if you just wanted to lay in bed and watch TV, you could have chosen that path, right?
I could have, but that wasn't how my father raised me. He raised me to be as normal, as much as I to test that word as I possibly could, because what is normal? But, that was the magical grail that I was searching for every day, to be as close to everybody else as I could be, because I was the same as they were mentally.
There's a famous expression, and I've said this on the floor of a St. Vincent's Hospital on February the 12th, 2000, right before my daughter was born. I prayed that she would have 5 fingers, 5 toes, 2 arms, 2 legs, and she could see and hear. I prayed to God. I got on I pronated myself on the floor of a dirty, it wasn't really dirty, but it wasn't really clean, St. Vincent's Hospital in Greenwich Village, New York, when my daughter Skylar was born, because I realized the enormity of what happens when you bring a child into this world. Now, you have fingers and 5 toes, 2 arms and 2 legs. You can see and you can hear, correct?
Correct.
But it soon became aware to the doctors, the family, that you were not developing as a quote unquote normal child.
That is correct.
Okay, so all of a sudden you were getting all this kind of special attention, right? Going to the doctors, going for tests, right?
Absolutely. It was one appointment after the other to determine what the best route was for me to achieve the best functionality in my life.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I was an only child.
Okay, so but as an only child, as a young child, you saw your mom, you saw your dad. Were they like pushing you to try and walk and get up and do different to move your hands and feet and all that?
Oh, my father was a huge proponent of physical activity because he understood the condition, because my grandfather was a practicing physician for over 50 years. So they and did house calls and had an office in the home. So there really was medicine all around me on both sides. So as an advocate to progress later in my career, which we'll talk about in a minute, I understood how medical practices worked and what the goals were.
You witnessed people walking around, and you were wondering, why am I not walking? What's wrong with my legs? Is that
Well, I was more frustrated because I lived in a world that wasn't designed for me.
right? Right, I get that, and that frustration grew, and you never really, at least my take on you, because we've known each other for 10 years at least. Um, you never just quit. Is that fair to say?
No, because I can't quit. Because if I quit, then I become my condition. I don't become a person. I just become a statistic. And for me, that's unacceptable.
I love that about you, bro, because you are you're a power of example to me as a man. There are days I have very bad days, and I learned a long time ago because I study. I'm very self analytical. I've sought all kinds of help in seeking to improve myself in every which way, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Those are the 4 legs of the table for me. And I realize that every morning you wake up, you have a choice. You say, I'm going to have a good day or I'm going to have a bad day. And, yesterday I woke up, wasn't feeling well, and I knew it was not going to be a good day, but I still sucked it up. And I came in and did a 2.5 hour podcast, and then had another 2 hours of meetings. But I will tell you, it was a bad day for me. And then when I got a call from Stephanie saying Ian Cannon is going to be your guest today, I immediately, I felt bad. Who am I to feel bad, to cloak myself with self pity when a guy like you is fighting every day, fighting with your body, fighting with your environment, but also you're a fighter, bro, in the literal sense and the figurative sense. You are trying to build a boxing league for people in wheelchairs, right?
Absolutely. And we did that. We did that. It's like building any business because, from your own time in combat sports, it's a business. We systemically built the rules with trained professionals, the great referee, Steve Smoger, may he rest in peace. Boxing promotional and management, great Al Valente and Mickey Ward. And we went to the best professionals and said, how can we do this? How can we adapt this to be safe and an appropriate palette for the combat sports masses to approach and appreciate?
Now you just dropped the name Mickey Ward. Mickey Ward was a world champion, correct?
Yes, WBU world champion, famous for The Fighter.
The
He's
movie The Fighter, correct? Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale. Yes, I was trained by both brothers
Wow.
extensively throughout my career. They have a nephew with a different type of CP than me, who they also taught to box and train. So they were the best. I worked with Mickey. I worked with Freddie Roach. I worked with Peter Welsh. I mean, I've gotten the opportunity to work with some of the best people in the business just by picking up the phone. And as you know from your own career in financial service, the phone and being personable is the greatest entrepreneurial tool that anyone can possess.
Yes, if you can learn how to communicate, the phone is the instrument that allows you to communicate with the world. With the world. If you knew what I accomplished just by having a telephone. And I teach that to people because a lot of young men just don't get it with texting and typing and emailing. It's DMing. That's what's happened to the world today. I believe you've got to learn to pick up that telephone and speak into it and convey a message. But I want to just get back to people are going to be confused. You lost essentially use of your legs, and
Yes.
you never had it really. And then
No,
your left arm is debilitated. It's not normal, right? It's something that you might have developed, but essentially it was a dead arm.
it was contracted. It wasn't dead. It just
Okay.
wouldn't extend like the other one.
And then your right arm, and you're obviously a righty, right? Because it's the one arm you had that was actually working, right?
One arm that was working perfectly. Yes.
And now cognitively, they also expected or suspected that you would be deficient.
I have no cognitive deficiency. The only thing that I have is a severe case of dyslexia.
Dyslexia, wow. Okay, so you really didn't get, God really put some obstacles in your way.
Yes, he
Wow.
did.
At least though they understand dyslexia. Do they have treatments for that?
Well, I do everything by audio. So I do a lot of audiobooks when I read, or I have my phone or my iPad read contracts or agreements to me that I sign in my entrepreneurial career. Those are things that I do just to make sure that I can fully grasp what I'm doing to make sure that there are no mistakes. But I can read, just not very well.
So we spoke the other day, and Larry was there. You met my friend Larry, my partner and friend, and I just let you speak. And afterwards, we hung up. I said to Larry, "What do you think?" And he said, "Because I know you for a bit of time, you inspire me. I like you." And I said, "What do you think?" He says, "He's a very well-spoken young man," and I love that because cognitive. You are exceptional on the cognitive front. You're not debilitated at all. You're, I think, fairly brilliant as a young man. And you've had to learn to navigate the world, your environment, as you like to say.
Yeah,
Using you.
navigating through adaptation. And as I mentioned to you and Larry on the phone, that critical thinking skill for any entrepreneur, and you know this yourself, having built numerous businesses, is the key to success. Creating that ability to strategically problem solve, do it within milliseconds, and then execute. And the key is execution. Brings about whatever you want, whatever your version of success may be.
Now, yourself, myself, and Johnny D in the house, we just navigated a couple of issues, didn't we? Between Riverside and Zoom and the phone and the iPad. But here we are now recording on a side by side Zoom call. That's really great. We just showed that if there's a will, there's a way. Correct? We,
Absolutely.
we had a lot of problems to solve here today, and finally we're getting to it. So eventually you discover, I think you said to me, roughly at the age of 12, you persuaded the powers that be, your parents, that you go to the gym and be allowed to train in the art of boxing.
Yes, I did.
So boxing, what people do not really understand, is a martial art. It is the art of hand fighting. and it's evolved obviously over the last couple of hundred years. And tell us about your training and how it affected your life.
Well, my training was sort of hit or miss because nobody had ever really done it before. So it was
Correct.
trial and error, throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what stuck. But from a medical benefit standpoint, I regained full use of my left arm, avoided major spinal surgery for 18 years, got off all medication, and lived a virtually normal life other than doing it from a seated position.
I love the way you put that. So, people don't understand, I guess, is that, and I didn't understand, I'm guilty of that, but, we all have these bones, right, that we take for granted. We don't really give 2 seconds thought. And as we grow and age, we walk, we talk, we use our hands, we lift things, we move things around because you are not in that position. Your bones were not as developed, right? And
They were brittle. I basically had the bones of a senior who was at risk of breaking. That's a great layman's way to look at it.
yep.
And through hitting the bag and stimulating through weightlifting and doing all of those things, it got the bones to be impacted and strengthened, just like all younger kids do when they run, jump, and play and do that stuff at 8 years old. This allowed me to do it as a teen, and my bone density went from -3, which is pretty severe on the scale of -5 to 5. And then through fitness, I got it to 0. I got it to normative levels.
Your density, your bone density.
Correct.
Right. It's something that people just don't think about until, your grandmother falls down the stairs and she breaks her hip and they find out she has osteoarthritis because her bone density is de minimis. And she's got to be careful. And as a senior myself, it's something that you have to become aware of. Although I seem to be, because of all my training, I seem to be pretty fit that way. I fall down continuously and walk into things and all that. But so now you convince your family and you get to a gym. And now where are you situated? Where do you reside? In Connecticut, correct?
I reside in Connecticut. I was in a local LA boxing franchise back then. Then I moved over to Ken Shamrock's Lions Den in Middletown, Connecticut, which is no longer there. And then this became such a success that we broadened it to other disabled individuals to get them to train and see what their benefits were. And we saw marked benefits. We had a dual stroke victim come to us in a chair. He left walking and driving
Wow.
by the end because his motor control improved.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We had a spinal cord injury client come to us who regained the ability to feel her bladder and contract her abs, which is huge.
Huge. Now, I understand because I've trained in combat sports and I trained a lot in boxing because I had hurt myself and I had a boxing trainer who claimed he could heal me, and he did. And that involves just using your hands, correct? Hitting a bag, right?
Hitting the bag, hitting the pads, which was my favorite, and sparring if you're medically cleared to do so. Those were the 3 things that I did.
Okay, now I understand all this. And as a fit man, I trained, I enjoyed boxing training after so many years of weightlifting and doing the same sets and the same reps and the same X over and over again. When I was introduced to boxing training, I fell in love with it because it was very different, right? And I get that. And then hitting the pads was one of my favorite things. Billy Patton, a little shout out to you, Big Bill, Billy from Philly, and I understand that. And I was itching to spar as well. I was itching to get into a ring and see how I could fare against a competitor. Correct, but even then, we wore headgear, we wore mouth guards, we had big gloves, the whole thing, right? And then when I sparred in MMA, we had shin guards and knee pads and all these different things because there's a lot of kicking involved and all that. And what on earth were you thinking in a wheelchair deciding to spar? That to me, that's a quantum leap. I get the training. I get it. I think the world could understand that. But what in the world did you come up with this idea that you were going to spar, let alone compete? That's next. Let's just talk about the concept of sparring. Were they allowing you to do that?
Oh, they were allowing me to do that. I signed the waiver and they talked to my doctor, and my doctor said, listen, the injury that he suffered at birth is not going to get any worse. Just treat him as though you would anyone else. And I I did what I had to do.
I
And
mean, bro, I would have kicked your ass, bro.
oh, I'm sure you would.
I'm just
I would have made you work for it, but I'm sure you would have kicked my ass.
okay. I would have had to sit in a chair though.
Oh, that's what we did when I was first sparring, because there are very few disabled martial artists who do combat sports. I would have pros. Shout out to Mike Oliver. Shout out to Matt Remlard. Both were contenders in their day. Sit in an office chair, and we would bang for 3-minute rounds and do what we had to do. And because of that, I learned to rely on my body and my brain's neurocognition for making my muscles function improve, because I had no other choice.
I mean, I got to say, people do not understand. You try just holding your hands up for 3 minutes and doing, punching, let alone, the adrenaline that goes through when you have someone punching back and when you have to block and think and feel all these different things. It's exhausting. One round is exhausting. And yet you are determined to spar. That must have been really funny in the beginning.
Oh, it was fun. It was funny. It was trial and error. It was a comedy of errors, an Abbott and Costello movie in the beginning, to be sure.
Did you ever get hit in the face?
Oh, I got hit in the face a bunch.
Really?
Black eyes, bloody noses, same gym injuries as everybody else.
Your mom must have been hysterical.
Well, my parents separated when I was 15. Well, when I was 12, and I moved in with my dad full time at 15. So my dad, being an athlete himself, said, "Oh, have fun. As long as you're safe and as long as they understand your issues, do whatever you want to do."
Now, when you first started, as you mentioned earlier, your bone density was like a -3, you said, and the worst is -5 that you can have, right, as a human being.
That is correct.
So your arms could have snapped at any time, right? I mean, in theory,
In theory, I could have had a minor fracture at any point. Yes. But because I was weightlifting and simulated weight bearing and doing all the things that I needed to do, we had completely resolved that issue.
what about your shoulders, man? Because my shoulders are both damaged from all this hitting all these heavy bags and all that kind of thing.
Well, I was in a manual chair. I was wheeling. So I'm a small guy. I'm only about 100 pounds.
Okay.
So I'm a flyweight, if you want to get technical. So because I'm not carrying a lot of weight to move myself or do pull-ups or lift heavy weight, I'm not putting a lot of strain on those joints. Probably when I hit 50 to 60, because of all the things that I've done, I'll develop a minor case of arthritis. They suspect, but they don't know.
Yeah, you never know what's going to be. But so now you're in the gym, you're lifting weights, you're training, you're sparring, you're hitting the bag, hitting the pads, and your arms are starting to, it's a great feeling, right? When you start to feel that rhythm, right? It's
addicting.
It's like drugs. It's like getting high. That's how I looked at it. I just loved it. And the days that I train, I am high, literally. The dopamine and the adrenaline and the wonderful feelings that you have, correct? So now you go from sparring and hitting bag. You decide you want to compete. You want to create a wheelchair league where you're going to fight other people that are in your condition, essentially. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, that we wanted to add a safe competitive element to what we were doing.
And not everybody had like cerebral palsy, et cetera. Everybody is in a wheelchair for different things, right?
Right. So the way that we conquered that, and you'll know from your own experience in the fight game, instead of just contacting a matchmaker and saying, "Oh, I've got two guys at 100 pounds in chairs and they're 5'2", let them do what we need to do." No, we would go to ringside physicians who are regular practicing physicians in their day-to-day life. And we would say, take these guys on as patients. review them from point of diagnosis to that day, looking at all of their medical history. And if that's an appropriate match medically, then we sign the deal. The deal is done. And throughout the entire experience, whether it's pro or amateur, everybody's wearing headgear. Everybody's using the same chair that we built and developed. And the referees, through Steve Smoger, are going through referee coaching. And I was the first ever wheelchair combat athlete to get licensed in the state of New Hampshire.
Such a crazy story, bro. So what people don't know is that there's in every state there's a commission, right? That
Right.
governs the rules, the laws, what goes, what doesn't go, has to approve every boxing match that occurs within that state, at least legally. There's a lot of illegal things that go on. We're not going to get into that right now. Uh, so, you are in the gym. You've got a trainer, right? Probably more than one. And they're probably very fond of you because you're an inspiration, bro. You have every reason to be a dog, just to want to lay there and do nothing. And yet you say, I'm going in, I'm going to fight. I'm sparring. I feel good. I want to compete. That's what happens, right?
Correct.
So you being, your dad was in my business, a financial services guy. You were raised in an entrepreneurial way. You say, I want to create a boxing league for wheelchair people in a state of New Hampshire. That's what happened, no?
So the league would have been national, but the first event would have taken place in New Hampshire because that commission was very friendly to the team that I had put in place. They were very amenable to listening to different things.
They were
And
reasonable. They were reasonable.
they were very reasonable.
Okay.
And so we decided to do the first event there. There were promotional issues that caused that event not to go off, but I still have the paperwork to say I was licensed.
And you were covered by national news, correct? Newspapers, magazines,
Oh,
TV.
I've been covered by my local news outlets anywhere I've lived. I've been covered by boxing combat sports podcasts that have global reach, simply because this is a unique approach.
I mean, I think this is something that's just amazing because, you know, the human spirit knows no bounds, bro. Am I right?
Absolutely right.
And so you still are interested in creating a league for wheelchair bound athletes that want
I,
more from this life.
I'm interested in creating an opportunity for them to take it as far as they want, whether it's training or competitive or both, so that people can see that disability itself is a choice. You are not a product of your environment. Your environment is a product of you.
And you have proven in a clinical sense that the training in and of itself has changed, literally changed the trajectory of your life and health.
Absolutely. I'm going to be candid. When I first went away to college and did that 18-year-old senior physical that we all do, those of us who pursue that path, my doctor said to me that if it wasn't for boxing, you would be in a group home today. Not because of any cognitive issue, but because my body would be so frail that I couldn't have lived independently. And now, as an adult, I live independently. I rent my own condo. I'm getting married. I pursue my own entrepreneurial endeavors and live that way.
Slow down for 1 second, bro. So you went away to college in spite of your condition.
Yes, I was a commuter, but I went to a local university, partied too hard, had my fun, and went to class.
Slow
And
down. What do you mean you party too hard? What does that mean?
I did what everybody does. I had I didn't focus on my homework. I focused
Did
on
you
the
drink
social.
alcohol or no?
I did. Yes, I did. I
Did you
did.
smoke weed?
Yes, I did. And then I did the normal college experience, and I dated and had a regular life, and boxing gave me the courage to do those things.
Do you take drugs?
I did not take hardcore drugs. No,
But you get drugs, no? They've given you meds your whole life. I'm guessing.
they until I started training, and then when I started training, I got off all my meds.
Good for you, man. I love that story. Now you said you dated.
I dated. Yes.
I mean, are you confined to dating women in wheelchairs or no?
Predominantly, and this is just me and my own life experience, I only date able-bodied women.
You only date it, so you're prejudiced. Yeah, you have a prejudice against it.
No, what I've found in my own experience when I tried to date people in my sort of real peer group, I found that it became enabling and it didn't become about the relationship, it became about the diagnosis. So then I made a choice
I get it.
to only date able-bodied women, and I dated quite frequently. Uh,
You're a good looking guy. I mean, you're a handsome guy. There's no doubt about it. I
thank
mean,
you very much.
now you told me you're getting married. I mean,
Yes,
I was a little stunned by that. I'm being candid with you, and I think that a lot of people in the audience are going to be stunned by that. But I'm not stunned by anything anymore. By after getting to know you like this, so I asked you. So, how'd you meet this woman?
I use dating apps because me meeting a woman at a bar when I'm shorter than everybody and down low doesn't really work.
I get that. I understand. And you were actually you told me you met her on Tinder.
I did meet her on Tinder, yes.
What a great story this is, bro. I mean, this is ridiculous. Is Tinder aware of this?
Tinder is not aware of this, no, but we should probably reach out and tell them after the wedding. I think we'll do that.
I think we should after this podcast is aired. I think that you're a powerful example. You show that the boundless. There's no top. There's no ceiling for the human spirit, and you embody that, bro. You embody that. You are a true power example. And when we throw at Raw, I'm part of a company called Raw Media. It's a new media company, and we're planning to throw an event in the fall. And I think we would be honored to have you on stage as a featured speaker.
I would absolutely love to do that. Thank you for the invitation.
Because I have to say that we are all limited by our own beliefs. Limiting beliefs are killers of success. And it's just limiting beliefs are something that I feel like that's like the devil's hand, if you know what I'm saying. God,
Right.
God, we were all created in God's image, whatever that means. We all have God in us. This is me speaking for me. But I feel your spirit, and you're in my life for a reason. And I think that's a reminder. Ian, it is a privilege to know you and to be able to add this podcast, record this with you today. What can we look forward to? What can we expect from Ian Cannon over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Well, I've got a book coming out within the next 2 years. Just a set up in 12 rounds, 12 chapters.
I love that.
Like my life in boxing as a sort of emotional guideline for people, not as a self-help tool, because I really don't agree with that model, but as a way to say, this is what I've done. This is how I define success. If you can learn anything from this, take it. Here's my story. Here's what I've experienced. And then hopefully a motivational speaking and coaching platform, as well
Absolutely.
as, well as guidelines for disabled people who want to get off the Medicaid and Medicare system, which really doesn't encourage entrepreneurial activity, for them to embrace business, embrace their own empowerment, embrace their own skills to move forward and become fully productive, economic contributing members of society.
The system as it is designed today is to keep you on the nipple, right?
In my view, yes, it is, because they're so concerned with fraud, they're so concerned with abuse that they've become restrictive economically to those of us who want to contribute.
I love that about you, my brother. So I expect to hear some big things from my friend Ian Cannon down the road. And if you have any comments or thoughts or questions, please, how do we contact Ian Cannon? Where do we find you?
I can be reached on Facebook and I can be reached on Instagram. My Instagram is two guns spelled out BOXIN. And I'm available for any comments, questions. If anyone is struggling with anything in their life, look at me as a friend and a support network for you.
You want to give us an email address?
Email address is very easy. Boxer, BOXER 625@gmail.com. I answer all my messages personally. And if you need to set up a call, we can gladly do that as well.
So DM him, look him up. I hail this man. He is a personal inspiration. He is a hero of mine. And I want to say this to you all. We expect great things to come from Ian Cannon. Congratulations on your wedding. I look forward to meeting the bride to be at some point. And God bless you, my brother. You are a shining power of example to all of us.
God bless you as well. And thank you for the compliment.
My pleasure.